Okay, I am back with Area of Thought 5 from Rick Rubin's book, The Creative Act. This is Life Vocabulary. I am Serena Hussein, and if you've been tuning in lately, I've been reading for the first time right here and reflecting at the same time on these very distinct areas of thought, not chapters. So let's dive back in. It is Area of Thought 5, the vessel and the filter. And so there's a quote to start with. The ability to look deeply is the root of creativity. To see past the ordinary and mundane and get to what might otherwise be invisible. The vessel and the filter. Each of us has a container within. It is constantly being filled with data. It holds a sum total of our thoughts, feelings, dreams, and experiences in the world. Let's call this the vessel. Information does not enter the vessel directly, like rain filling into a barrel. It is filtered in a unique way for each of us. Not everything makes it through this filter. And what does get through doesn't always do so faithfully. We each have our own method of reducing source. Our memory space is limited. Our senses often misperceive data, and our minds don't have the processing power to take in all the information surrounding us. Our senses would be overwhelmed by light, colour, sound, and smell. We would not be able to distinguish one object from another. To navigate our way through this immense world of data, we learn early in life to focus on information that appears essential or of particular interest, and to tune out the rest. Gosh, this is like all the writing and editing work that I do, and even the strategic work that involves so much culling and cutting out of like the so-called sort of useless bits, or the bits that aren't applicable, and you end up sort of cutting out sort of so much of the picture becomes almost just a fragment of the entirety, and you don't get that holistic sense or that holistic experience or holistic feeling. It's one of the things that I don't really enjoy about that world, actually, of having to be so discriminating and almost ruthless, and also so not even scientific, but cold. There's something cold about that approach. As artists, we seek to restore our childlike perception, a more innocent state of wonder and appreciation, not tethered to utility or survival. Our filter inevitably reduces source intelligence by interpreting the data that arrives instead of letting it pass freely. Letting the data just pass freely instead of interpreting it. Because when we interpret it, we are really kind of applying all kinds of lenses and ideas that we've, I guess, conditioning. It's a filter, isn't it? Letting it pass freely, like a child. As a vessel fills with these recast fragments, I mentioned that, relationships are created with the material already collected. These relationships produce beliefs and stories. They may be about who we are, the people around us, and the nature of the world we live in. Eventually, these stories coalesce into a worldview. You know, this is so useful when we are doing the work to almost deconstruct our worldview or deconstruct our perspectives on things if we're going through a process of unlearning. As artists, we want to hold these stories softly and find space for the vast amount of information that doesn't fit easily within the limits of our belief system. The more raw data we can take in and the less we shape it, the closer we get to nature. Everything is so edited, filtered, cut down, made punchy, short form, snip, 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 and we don't get anything in its raw form. I suppose this is why so many of us gravitate toward long form content that is organic, spontaneous, it's conversational. It occurs, doesn't it, organically? It's very raw. Maybe there's a sort of certain kind of state of mind, mentality that prefers that kind of long form content to very short form scrolling on TikTok or any other short form video platform. The more raw data we can take in and the less we shape it, the closer we get to nature. Imagine being in nature and just sort of being immersed in this sort of bath of luscious foliage and light and reflection, texture, sound. One can think of the creative act as taking the sum of our vessel's contents as potential materials, selecting for elements that seem useful or significant in the moment and representing them. This is source drawn through us and made into books, movies, buildings, paintings, meals, businesses, whatever projects we embark on. If we choose to share what we make, our work can recirculate and become source material for others. Source makes available, the filter distills, the vessel receives, and often this happens beyond our control. It is helpful to know this default system can be bypassed. With training, we can improve our interface with source and radically expand the vessel's ability to receive. Changing the instrument is not always the easiest way to change the sound of the music, but it can be the most powerful. Changing the instrument is not always the easiest way to change the sound of the music, but it can be the most powerful. It is helpful to know this default system can be bypassed, this default system of filtering through what source makes available. But with training, we can improve our interface with what source is communicating to us and radically expand our ability as a vessel to receive. And radically expanding us as a vessel is like changing the instrument, retuning it. I wonder if you have any practices or rituals or techniques that you employ, that you sort of take part in, that allow you to do just this, to help you to really receive all that source is communicating to you and expressing to you, so that you can absorb and align and be more connected. I wonder, for me, it's usually pranayama, breath work, as we call in yoga. It's rest, nap, releasing resistance, sleeping. It's being in flow at one in nature. It's walking without listening to anything. Yes, it can be a yoga practice if it's more slow and mindful and not rushed and trying to get somewhere or get into a certain way. It's cooking without listening to anything, or just it's being in the moment, doing an activity that really allows you to be in the moment. It's sitting on a bench and just observing and doing the thing that he talked about, which is the awareness bit. It's the cultivating of how you do that. I'd love to hear from you. I'll see you in the next area of thought, which is area 6.